All right. So I want to welcome you to a very special recording today. I had plans to go live. I was going to bring a few of my friends on, but nothing went as planned. But it's okay because I'm not going to let that stop me. Today is a day where I'm going to recognize myself. I'm going to recognize the seed that has been within me and the birthing process that I've had to go through. I wish I could say this has been years in the making, but it hasn't. Okay. This that I'm about to share with you is something that's evolved over time, and it came out of my own unraveling and threshold moment. When I lost my job in 2024, I was going to exit it, but it came, right when I wasn't expecting it. But I said, that's okay. I had a client and I was just ramping up my consulting business so that I could exit anyway. And we know that around that time, the job market was already on shaky ground. But I've got my eye on the prize and I'm in a lane and I'm going in that lane. That wasn't the lane I was supposed to be in. And it didn't take long before I realized that, right? While watching this social reckoning that was happening on the outside, I was having my own internal reckoning that turned into my personal evolution. And I've shared this on this channel with you all. I'm not going to get into all of that today, but um, there was something inside of me that just kept me moving, right? And I knew eventually I was going to have to shift lanes. I just didn't know which lane, right? But before I could do that, I had to go a little bit deeper and darker. And so that meant going within and doing that kind of work, painful. This is excavation. When you excavate something, you're sort of scraping and you're digging up, right? And at the same time, if you watch archaeologists do this, what are they doing? They're brushing and they're being very gentle with the bones in the areas. And this is how you have to be in that process. There's a handle with care at the same time, but you have to be willing to go in and go deep. And every layer, and every time I went deeper and deeper, and it got darker and darker, I would emerge from that with something that felt delicious to my soul, right? So I would allow myself to sink into that depth because I knew that where I live within me, the I within me, my divine center was where the reward or the treasure lied, right? When I got to that point, I had gone through so much digging, right? It's messy. I moved into, now this is over a year period, right? This is not an easy road. But by 2026, by the time as 2026 was coming on, I was ready to call 2026 my wild woman era. And that's because one of the books that took me through this and held me through this was Women Who Run with the Wolves by Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes. So a lot of my teaching is going to be informed by that. And you hear me because I talk a lot about archetypes. And there was this transition that I went through with the archetypes, right? But also discovering that, I realized too, I wanted to be in a room of other women, other wild women, right? Women who were evolving, growing, building at every level in their lives, not just business, because I could see clearly that connection between the lives we live and the businesses that we create. One of the things that I got from that, from the corporate lens that I was seeing, was that there were many women who were building businesses, and the foundation of it was on the very system that they said that they were working against. They were saying that they were working outside of that fishbowl, but they were really working from it. And so that to me told me that there was a colonization of mindsets that were happening. That women were out here, yes, we're building empires, but building it from what kind of truth, right? To me, it's built on a lie. The other iteration of that was looking at what happened with the filthy files, and some of us that are in the spiritual community, and we saw them, our the beloved spiritual teachers that we had were named in these files. We're using a lot of those teachings foundationally in our work, right? Not saying that it negates the spiritual work, but again, the mindset and the thinking, right? What are we bringing into spaces? What are we bringing into our businesses? And so I think that women who have reached a certain wisdom place in their lives, um, they're ready to build something that looks and feels different. So I wanted that, right? I want to be in a space where we're building from this wisdom, not just lived experience wisdom, but ancestral wisdom, where there are bold ideas and we can um, trust one another, right? And have these sharp, deep, expansive conversations. And this is what I believe I've built with the Feminati. Now, the Feminati is a sovereign order. It's an incubator for women who are done building inside someone else's blueprints, and they're ready to build something parallel, a parallel system and structure, right? So here's what happens inside the Feminati. You will have access to high level vetted teachers and experts, and they will come on a monthly or bi monthly basis, right? To deepen your knowledge base. What do you need to know? And this is in all areas of your life. I'm not just talking about business, I'm talking about all areas of your life: relationship, leadership, um, mental health, wellness, wholeness, right? So you'll have access to that. You have access to a curated group of peers. This is so important. This is a network of women who are operating at the same altitude as you. This is key, right? You have an opportunity also to participate in in a cooperative economy where everyone in this space, they spend, they hire, they invest within that network first before you go outside of it. You need something, a product or a service, it is there in your network. Well, at least you start there before you go anywhere else, right? So we're circulating revenue, right? But in from that as well, part of the funds that come in from the membership, there is a collective fund, right? That's seeded in from our cooperative economy, and then we deploy it to build outside of the fishbowl. That could be, it can run on many different layers, and that would be up to the women in the community to decide what that looks like. And I want to talk a little bit more about that because I feel like that part of it, sovereign wealth, right? is is huge to the power that a collective like the Feminati can have. Now, if you look at one of my videos, I talk about women's economic power, and it's titled "Your Financial Power Outweighs Your Voting Power." And I talk about how we know that capitalism, what capitalism has done to women's relationships with money and desire and their worth, right? And it's not by accident, it's by design, right? And so women have been taught to distrust their economic instincts. Um, I always hear that they're not, oh, I'm not good at math. You're told you're not good at money, right? That kind of messaging, that kind of programming, it shrinks your appetite for building wealth, right? Now, a lot of us are breaking out of that, but again, what is it built on, right? And we have enough historical context to understand that women have been doing this from the 12th, 15th, 17th century, right? Women have been having their own economies and running their own micro communities, very intentional in nature. And again, there's another video that I talk about, and I think it's called "The Great Remembering," balancing um, balancing power. Can't get them all right, but it's there. So this is a huge part of it as well, right? So you got cooperative economy, you've got collective wealth fund, you've got a strong pair of women operating at the same level, you've got collective imagination. Um, this is part of the strategy. This is part of the strategy where you are bringing your boldest ideas, not your safest, your boldest ideas. This is where you dream and imagine dangerously. And I'm going to get into that um, because one of the first programs operating through the Feminati is our Dangerous Imagination labs. And so I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But for me too, I love the idea of when you think about a community like this, you think about sororities, right? For those of us that have been in sororities, or you think about some of the lodge orders, right? And the kind of covenant those groups have. This is what this is. But it also has within it the Sawera. And I mentioned the Sawera. This is a Shuna name, a Shuna word that means friend for life. And I got it from the book The Awakened Woman by Dr. Tarari Trent. She's a woman from Zimbabwe that came to America, got her PhD, and against all odds, created this beautiful life, but coming from a country that really was oppressive and abusive to women. But she talks about this, right? That women enter into this covenant with one another, and they are sawera to each other throughout their lives, right? Through the birthing of children, through through deaths in the family, through all sorts of to their own death, even, right? And I thought about that. I thought about the energy of that and bringing that into the space and what that means and looks like for a woman today in this United States. And I'm thinking, yes, we want the energy of a Sawira in the Feminati so that women understand the importance of that covenant and how that can extend over a full arc of a lifetime of births, all types of births, right? Physical, spiritual, whatever, right? Their achievements in their lives, the losses, right? Their transformation, having that kind of a covenant, right? And so the Feminati has that energy, but it's also asking you to return to something very matriarchal and ancient. And so that is going to be at the root of this. In this space, you are committing to show up for other women with everything that she carries and everything that she's building, right? This is not just about you. It is this philosophy that um, as I rise, you rise. If I don't shine, if you don't shine, I don't shine. Like we shine together. I don't shine if you don't shine, right? And you're actively looking for ways to collaborate rather than compete with one another. So I don't believe there's anything else like this out there. And I'm just hitting the top of the iceberg, so to speak, when I'm sharing this. I want to have one-on-one conversations with you that yearn for a space like this, that want to be a part of this type of living ecosystem that I call it, right? Um, so founding member applications are now open with only 10 spots for founding membership at a membership price that I have. And you should understand too that there is an application process, right? Because there's a select group of women that need to be in this space. The quality of that room depends on who's inside the room. So that way, you know that you're stepping into a space that has already been curated to meet your highest level. So I'm going to link the interest form in the show notes below for you. But to let you know, founding membership starts at $6,000. Okay, that's per year, and that's locked in for life as long as you would like to be a part of the Feminati. And it's giving you access to everything that I named, as well as any events that we have, any saloons that we have that are opened to people outside of the Feminati. Those are free to you, right? We're also going to be having retreats, at least one a year, but I'm looking to do at least two. And those are going to be very specific in nature for the members. So you're going to have an opportunity to really be in a space that is going to elevate you on so many different levels, not just your business, but your entire life, the way you think about your life. Because the women that come into the Feminati are coming to build and to create a new world order. So this is not for everyone, right? So let me go back and just talk with you a little bit about the dangerous labs, the dangerous imagination labs. So this is the first. Uh, what am I calling it? I don't want to call it a teaching. I'm so careful about what I name things. But this is going to be for a cohort, and this will happen in late July. Only open to 10 to 12 women, and they're going to be working in sets of 2 in pods. And this is where this dangerous imagination is going to happen. This is another space that, again, you're not going to be coached. This is not about coaching. This is about liberation and decolonization, and granting you the space and the capacity to do this for yourself and for another woman, right? And you're going to do this, every time you come into the pod, you're going to stay with that one woman over that 12 weeks, because there has to be a level of trust and covenant that I've been talking about that's happening in that space with you two together. Each woman carries this archetype. There are 2 archetypes that work within this pod. There's the conscious archetype, architect, the conscious architect. very strategic, intuitive, design minded. This is the one that builds from that liminal space, grounded within themselves, right? So that's the person who's coming up with ideas, right? Then there's the midwife of collapse. The midwife of collapse, and I came up with this archetype because I knew what it felt like to be the midwife of my own collapse. This is the one holding the space during the unraveling, right? As the architect is speaking, as the architect is thinking strategically and design minded and moving from this groundedness within them, the midwife of collapse is holding that space. They're the midwife, right? And they are reading the contractions, right? Where is that pain coming from? Where is it pushing from, right? And then they're also sense making the blueprint that is coming from the architect. In that pod, you all will switch roles, being the midwife to each other, being an architect for one another, right? This is how you hold space. During this 12 weeks, you'll learn to hold these archetypes, but you're also going to move into some other archetypes as well, right? You'll see as you move in phases through this, because there are three phases when you go through this lab. And the first one is this excavation, right? This is the first essential stage of creating outside of that fishbowl, right? Before anything can be built, you have to uncover what is that. I akin it to this anchor that holds a boat down, and you can't go anywhere but where you're just stuck and you're floating around, right? It's something like that. You're excavating from that, or you're excavating in how I spoke about it earlier when I opened up, like an archaeologist, right? Just giving you some visuals here. But this is an honest examination of what's been buried underneath the survival of your life, right? The identity that you've been given from the system, the obligations, the permission asking, the good girl persona, all of that, right? What is under all of that? So we're going to excavate some of that. Then we're going to move into your blueprint activation, right? Once excavated, what's always been there, we're going to activate that unique genius, the unsanctioned thing, the ancestral blueprint. It's been sitting, it's like a scroll. It's like a scroll, activated, released, and opened, right? And then we go into the building, right? This is where you create together with intention and discipline and in covenant with one another. This blueprint becomes something real. Again, not just in business, not just in career, but in your life, your relationships, who you are. By the end of that cohort, you will be making moves that the system can't keep up with. It can't metabolize it. Your thinking has a level, a standard right now. You won't think like everyone else. And so I want you to understand you don't need to come into the space thinking that, oh, I have to have some idea. I have to, be thinking about doing this or doing that. You don't have to have a seed to enter this space because you are the seed. You are coming into fertile ground in the Feminati, and it will sprout. It will grow. It will have roots, deep roots. And those roots will be connected to all the other women within the Feminati. When you look underground and you see the root system of trees or even mushrooms, because that was where I really started to envision this when I thought about the mycelium network of mushrooms and their roots underground. It's like a network, right? And the network is doing something we can't even see above ground. And it's communicating with one another, right? This is what we become in the Feminati. This is not something that the whole world needs to know about because the gift of the Feminati is not in revenue. It's not in the amount of people that come through, right? It's not measured in that, the amount of members and retention rates and all. It's not that. It's measured in what women build inside it and carry out of it, right? Something that she's built that the world has never seen before. A blueprint that would never have been created without that room. So I want you to think of her. I call the Feminati her as a living organism, as a living ecosystem, right? It needs you just as much as you need her, right? And it comes alive with each woman that operates within it. It is where the liberation of women's mind, bodies, and souls occur in the presence of other women while building, creating new structures and institutions and ways of living and loving and being. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not doing this alone. Because we are at the point now where we have to work together to have the maximum amount of power to create the world that we want to create. And so I believe that wholeheartedly. So I'm bringing in other contributors, facilitators, and like I said, very vetted, high level vetted people in this space with me. And so just understand we cannot build outside of that fishbowl from inside of it. And we can't do it the way they do it. We must architect from the medial space, that in between space. This is a world, this is a space I'm going to take you to in the Dangerous Imagination Labs. Look up the medial woman archetype, the space that she can live in both worlds. She can straddle. She can balance it. But in that liminal space, in that middle ground is where she goes deep. And she can bring forth something that the world has just never seen before. And because it's from there that what is built cannot be destroyed. It cannot be absorbed by that fishbowl. This is what birthing a new world order looks like. So, thank you guys for showing up today and being here. I am going to put a link to the interest form below. You can reach out to me. We can have a conversation only. If you have any questions, reach out to me. But today is the day. And I'm actually, as I was thinking about this, I was like, today out of all days that I would do this, because this is my what do you call it? My Jupiter Rahu in my life right now. And I'm just at a place right now where I have to show up. It's not about performing, it's about being. It's about, putting the work out that is required of me, putting the words out that need to be there, putting parts of me that I kept to myself, because everything that comes forward now, it is of me. It is from me, no one else. And so here I am. So thank you again for joining me. I'll see you next time. Remember, this is the work of remembering who you are before the world told you who to be.